Welcome to the Picture This Photography Gallery. I'm Robert Silvering, and I will be walking you through this gallery exhibit. What I'm actually going to be doing is showing you a sampling of photos from participants in the Picture This Photography class that we've been running at the Sachem Library. The class basically goes on once per month. Just a little bit about the Picture This class. I started the class back in January of 2014, and we've been running the class once a month, every month through March 2020. Unfortunately, we did have to postpone it due to COVID-19, and we hopefully will be starting it back up whenever it is safe to do so. And the class is really, it's a forum really for sharing, displaying, and receiving receiving constructive assessments of our photos. So we show our photos on screen and then discuss them and share our ideas. We'll learn some technical and abstract aspects of photography. Um, we have monthly voluntary assignments to help improve our photography skills. And we learn a lot from each other also because we share ideas, talk about how the photos were taken, and also, we try and listen to what each other has to say and our comments about the photos from other members of the class. We also have an occasional voluntary local field trip. Okay, so we're about to get started here. I'll start off with showing you some photos that I've taken, some of the ones that I particularly like. And mainly what I'm going to be doing is I will point out things on some of the photos just to highlight certain aspects of the photo. But otherwise, there'll be many photos that I may not give any commentary on, so I'll let the photos speak for themselves. This first photo was I'd taken in Jerusalem. The thing that just want to point out here is take a look at the backlighting. You don't need to see the faces. You can almost tell it's a mother and her two children walking through one of the ancient areas of Old Jerusalem. What I'd like to point out on this photo, this is actually a composite photo. You have some very ancient area in Malta. That's the alleyway that you see. So that's from Malta, and the seagull was taken in Montauk Point. So you can see by compositing the photo, we were able to give us a feeling that we were sitting on the back of the seagull. This was taken in Vietnam, and the thing that I'd like to point out here is just if you take a look and see how the footbridge kind of leads the viewer right into the photo from the lower right-hand corner all the way in and through. This was taken in a wood shop, a wood selling area, a store in South Africa. But the thing that I'd really like you to look at is the lighting. In my opinion, actually makes the photo. This photo was taken in Bath, England. And what I'd like to point out here is reflections. When you're taking photos, take a look. Always observe everything that's around you. When you compose your photo, look at reflections. Look at how the pillars on either side of the photo also help to frame the photo. This was taken in South Africa. Once again, lighting really makes the photo. This was a little girl in South Africa also. We were visiting a school, and she turned around and looked at me. And lighting and expression. Also, a shallow depth of field kind of like keeps her in as the main subject in the photo, and blurs the background enough you're able to make out what it is, but it doesn't distract. At a ballet class, this was in South Africa also. Lighting. Here, there were some zebras that we came across during a safari in South Africa. And as you can see, you don't need to always have the entire animal. So sometimes just cropping to have a certain portion can help increase the impact of a photo. The comment I'd like to say here, you can see a slow shutter speed will give you some blur and motion, and sometimes you may say, well, um, you don't really want blur, and that's fine. You can control that with your shutter speed, but sometimes you want to show motion, and it basically shows that there's action going on. The still life, actually, I didn't even set this up. This was in a hotel room. We had put some fruit on a desktop, I think it was, and I just happened to observe the lighting. Lighting I thought was really pretty, and just took the shot. Lighting and expression. This was in a schoolroom in Cambodia, I believe. Look at the expression of the children, and look at the lighting on their faces. This is one of my favorite photos, but it's also a very emotional photo for me. This was taken back in 1988 in St. Paul's Chapel. And in the graveyard at the chapel, I laid down on my belly to actually take this shot and lined up two black tombstones with the Twin Towers. Inclement weather shouldn't stop you from taking pictures. This was actually taken from out of the front of a bus window. It was teeming rain. You can actually see where the windshield wiper blade, I think, would cut across. If you take a close look, this was in Manhattan, looking down 6th Avenue, and like I said, the rain. Most of the distortion is from the rain. I did think I did add a little bit of a filter from a watercolor filter. This was in Jerusalem. And what I'd like to point out is look at your surroundings. Look, sometimes you can make certain things can give some social commentary. In this case, there was a beautiful mural on a wall. There was a young boy sitting on an ancient pillar playing a video game, if you can see in front. Once again, reflections and lighting. This was taken at a grocery store, actually, and it was just I liked the way the peppers were lined up, and we basically used a photo filter to give the photo a twirl. So there are many filters that you can use to add effects to your photos. Okay. Next person that I'm going to be showing is Anne Marie Tognella, and she's been a member of the class and actually was very helpful in getting the class started. Okay, take a look. Look how the railing leads the viewer right into the photo. Beautiful how the lighting comes in. You can almost feel the soft wisp of wind whipping the cloth that's hanging down. Lighting and texture, and of course color makes a big difference in this photo. Shadows, very important, and sometimes you can look at different things and just see different shapes. Colors, shapes, and shadows. Geometric texture. Look at the perspective as you look down this photo. Backlighting can also give you some very, very interesting photos. As you can see, you can on this yellow leaf, you can see actually what's behind it, and it also helps bring out the veins in the leaf. Reflections. I think this is a reflection in a store window in New York City. Don't be afraid to get in close on some of your photos. Sometimes when you get in really close, you can really appreciate the textures and colors. Look at your composition. Very, very interesting shapes. I also like how how a vertical, not a vertical, how a diagonal line cuts from the lower left all the way to the upper right when you have your yellow along the bottom and your orange along the top. Interesting composition. Lots of shapes. And of course the lemon in front just jumps out at you. Okay, the next person's photos will be photos from Barry Bernstein, another member of our class. I don't remember exactly what this was that Barry had shot. However, I do know that Barry very often will use filters to totally change how the picture looks. And if I remember correctly, he definitely used some filters on this photo. Very interesting shot. Look at the lighting. Lighting, of course, in this photo is everything. Kind of an abstract photo. Lighting and reflections. Vignetting can also help bring out a photo. Very shallow depth of field, and of course, in this case, you definitely do not need to show the entire animal. For me, you can almost feel the wispiness of these sea anemones. I think Barry took these in Old Bethpage Village. They had a recreation of an old scene, and by using a sepia tone, you can actually make it look as though the photo may have been taken 150 years ago. Another macro shot. Beautiful colors. Beautiful lighting. Backlighting and silhouettes. I believe this was a composite shot that Barry had done. This was using many filters. Once again, an abstract photo. This shot, I believe Barry used certain filters also to get, especially for the reflection portion. These next photos are by Bob Figueroa. Lighting is beautiful. Composition. Look at how the black and white really helps intensify the feel of an old building that looks like it's been stood up to many, many different pieces of harsh weather. This almost looks like it could have come out of a photo, an ad for an automobile. Look at how the lighting really stands out on the automobile. Beautiful backdrop. Snow is very difficult to photograph because it's when you're shooting something white on white, very often you lose the texture. This was done a really beautiful photo. This Bob had done a composite photo. I think he took a photo of the Milky Way and also of this young lady kicking a soccer ball. I think the eyes of the bird were really very interesting. Nice shallow depth of field so you have no distraction in the background. This was an interesting still life. And you can set up all kinds of different still lifes. Mainly what you want to do is just want to make sure when you do something like that, you don't have distractions around and that your your lighting is really highlights the still life. I think Bob had titled this "Spring Ahead," talking about with daylight savings time. This was a time exposure. Um, this was some kind of, I guess, at a fair, and as this ride was spinning, there was a very slow shutter speed, so that you're able to basically it just gave a certain pattern, and you really end up with some very interesting effect. Of course, taking something like this, your camera needs to be on a tripod, otherwise the entire shot would be blurry. And this, I think, Bob photographed with actually at a high shutter speed and a high speed flash. Another photo showing that you don't have to get the entire animal to get a photo that has a lot of impact. Okay, the next photos were shots taken from Diane. In this one, I really like how uh, the trees lead you straight in, and also the crosses lead you in from the left-hand corner. This once again looks like a twirl filter on a corkscrew. Very interesting pattern. Lighting and shapes. Very shallow depth of field has the leaf really jump out of you. Beautifully balanced photo. Almost feels like you can just walk right down that boardwalk into the sunset. Shadows can help make or break a photo. Here you almost feel as though you're right in the boat going through the canals of Venice. These next photos are taken also from, but this is from a different young lady in our class, Diane. Sometimes you need a telephoto lens to capture animals that you can't get too close to. If you get out early right after a snowfall, sometimes you can capture snow in the trees before the wind blows it off of the branches. When you're photographing animals, you really also need to be very patient. Um, and if you are, sometimes you'll be able to get a photo like this with the bird's wings just starting to open up. Looks like just about to take off. And when you're taking pictures of people, they don't always have to be facing you, even though very often you feel that, well, they need to. Sometimes you can be telling a story, just people walking down a path. This next group of photos are taken from Frank Margola Jr., another member of our class. I think this photo actually was taken at the library, and look at the patterns, look at the colors. Um, just a very interesting composition. Look at how the arch frames this photo of the Twin Towers. Once again, backlighting. Backlighting really, you have silhouettes of the people. You don't need to see their faces, but you can tell that they're interested in what's going on. When you're taking photos also, sometimes it's just, you don't need to, you can enhance the impact of the photo by kneeling down a bit, looking at something face on. Beautiful lighting. You can see all of the texture, all of the different shades of white. Same with this. Lighting is excellent, texture is beautiful. Here you use selective color. This is also done, as you can probably tell, at a very high speed. And when you're photographing at night, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult. The tripod usually does help, but try a number of different exposures so that you can get the exposure correct. Simple geometric shapes. You can see how a sepia tone actually adds to looking at something that is old. This is a filter to change a photo so that it almost looks like an etching. Look at all of the shapes in this. Interesting composition. Same here, lighting, geometric shapes. In this one, I think the one window on the left with this that has the splash of color really grabs your eye. These next photos are from Gabriel Figueroa. Look at the layers and shades of color throughout this photo. And the one bird flying through really catches your attention. Once again, getting down a little low and angling the photo can really add to the impact of your photo. When you're taking pictures of birds that are flying or anything that's moving, sometimes if you pan the camera, that means holding the camera and following it, the animal or the object as it moves, you can help just capture that the animal's motion. And sometimes you may even blur the background, which gives it a further feel of motion. Next photos are from Gwen. Simple objects, interesting composition. Sometimes looking straight down or straight up can give you an interesting photo. Even though a bit blurred, this photo still gives you that almost an eerie feeling. I like how the rocks all seem to be pointing in towards the person standing at the end. These next photos are from Joanne Giacchetto. Great lighting, white on white, excellent. Use of reflections. Shapes. Pretty still life. Once again, lighting is really nice on this composition. This one looks very inviting to me. I love the shapes, the round, smooth edges versus all of the chiseled edges of the walnuts. Simple objects can sometimes make very interesting photos. Next photos are from John Maldonado. Lots of texture on this shot. Here, if you look at the negative space on the left-hand side, really enhances this photo. Lots of shapes. Shadows really help make this shot. Lots of texture here. Fantastic depth of field, where the object right in front is sharp. The ones in the background are blurred so they don't distract, but you can certainly tell what they are. Reflections in the ice. These next photos are by Judith. Beautiful lighting and composition. Everyday objects can very often make interesting photos, as long as you just look for them. Nice lighting, nice shadows. These next photos are by Karen Bliss. Interesting shapes. If you're patient, you may be lucky enough to get a duck trying to land on ice. Sometimes taking pictures of things that have old memories can turn out to be very interesting. I love the perspective of looking straight up through the tree. Now the branches lean out in all directions. Great lighting. Great perspective, looking straight down the fence. Once again, the sepia tone really adds to the age of the photo. The vignetting also adds impact to the shot. Interesting filter on this one. Shallow depth of field really helps this photo. Beautiful reflections. Don't be afraid to get down low. You can also really add to the impact. Here you don't even need to see this whole photo to understand that something very special is going on. Lighting totally makes this photo. These next photos are from Kate Sheffar. Beautiful colors and layers of lighting. Slow shutter speed really shows the motion of this bird. I like how the reflection and the walkway kind of lead you into the photo from the lower left-hand side. Interesting shot from a dog's perspective. If you take a picture from a moving car, very often uh, the scene that's closest to the car may end up being blurred, but the objects that are further away will be less blurred, as you can see in this photo. Great perspective shot. Nice backlighting really helps the seeds in this piece of fruit show up. Great reflection. These next photos are from Lou Campo. Nice reflections. Interesting shot taken through a chain link fence. Great photo of some geese coming in for a landing. Nice colors, nice sense of motion here. See how the train tracks lead the viewer right in and right around into the photo. This, I think, was taken right in the library. Interesting photo. Great backlighting. Beautiful silhouette. These next photos are by Marilyn. Nice reflections. I like how the fence leads you in from the lower left-hand corner. Great use of color, shadows, texture. This was also taken at the library. Interesting shapes and shadows. These next photos were taken by Michael. Great silhouette. And these next photos were taken by Teresa. Once again, you don't need the whole animal to tell the story. And these next photos were taken by Trish. Well, this is just a sampling of some of the photos from our class. Um, if you have any questions or require any information, you can contact me at rsilveringphotography@yahoo.com, or you can just ask at the library. Hopefully, we will be restarting classes again once it's safe to do so, and they meet once a month. So thank you very much for visiting, and thank you again. Take care, everybody.